What is going on? How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Risen Fallen Podcast. I am your host, Mark Hendrickson, and if you're brand new to this podcast, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and how to get your life moving in the right direction if you're not feeling good about where you are right now in your life, at least helping you get, like I said, one step closer every single day, 1% better every single day, or at least not moving backwards. And on that note, I think a lot of us, wait, is that a good enough intro for this? If you're brand new to listening to this, I think that is. This is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, everything like that. But I'm sure you know that because you've found it on a platform. And so it's probably available on every other platform. So you can go and check it out and leave a little review, leave a little like, leave a little comment, post your thoughts, get engaged. All those things help me out. And on that note, what is going on? It is a beautiful Monday morning. As you guys know, I post this podcast episodes every single Monday morning. So you guys can kind of start your week off listening to it, or sometimes it's just a reminder for me to start my week off on a positive note. It is Monday, November 3rd, and we are rocking and rolling. It is, getting a little wetter here in Vancouver, but that is no surprise, kind of how Novembers and Decembers go around here, and Octobers as well. But, I think it seems to be like the beginning of the season for us here, and it got pretty cold pretty quick. A lot of people are saying we kind of jumped right into winter. We went from summer to winter. We kind of skipped fall. We had maybe like a week or two of fall, but we jumped right into winter, it feels like. And so, at the beginning of every season, I find myself kind of reflecting a lot more, kind of looking back at myself, my life, my habits, my behaviors, my and just the results of those things. Also just checking in with myself, how I'm feeling, how I'm doing in all aspects of life, whether that be financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, etc. Just kind of like to check in with myself. And a lot of the times when that happens, I find myself saying, I need to think about some new habits. I need to think about some new I always tell myself, okay, I'm going to read, I'm going to journal, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to do that, I'm going to work, I'm going to make more money, I'm going to save more money. There's always going in my head, like things to improve, things to do better, things I can, reap more benefits from in my life. And I always find myself saying, I got to start new habits. I got to start doing this more. I got to read more. I got to journal more. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I'm usually pretty good about just kind of forcing myself to go through it. If you're anything like me, I kind of grew up very undisciplined. I never really needed to have a ton of discipline in my life. I was able to just I was one of those guys that was just able to kind of, skate by, doing the bare minimum, never really exceeding expectations, never really missing them. It was just always kind of like always average. And so I didn't really need to develop any discipline or habits around these things. It just never really became an issue for me until I started dealing with issues in life, right? Like as you kind of get older, your issues get bigger and bigger. And then when they're kind of like an insurmountable, you develop discipline or you get crushed by them. That's kind of the way that at least my experience has been. And so I kind of went from this very like undisciplined person who was just always getting by, just trying to have fun for the day, basically. Trying to find a way to have fun today, have fun this weekend, do a little partying, do a little, shopping, do a little eating, do a little whatever, just looking for instant gratification and behaving in an undisciplined way. And, I would just, again, that's kind of just the way that I went about life. And then I found there was a ton of problems in my life as a result of that. And of course, I think a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction is to go, to take the joystick and take it from one position and crank it as hard as they can to the other side, which for me meant going from like super undisciplined to like, I need to be militant with how I spend my time and think about things. Not everything is gray area. It's more black and white than I believe, and so I went from this, smoking, drinking, partying, shopping, eating, fucking glutton to kind of just like this like opposite end of the spectrum, where like I'm going to follow strict diets, I'm going to follow a strict training regimen, I'm going to read every single day, I'm going to wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, like literally trying to control everything to the most minuscule detail possible, going from each extreme, as a knee-jerk reaction, going from this life of undisciplined and then thinking, okay, that's obviously the worst thing, so I need to go to this life of discipline. That's clearly going to be the best thing. And you kind of go through these stages of like level 1, level 2, level 3, and not just say that I'm like more advanced than anybody else, but I'm just saying like it seems to be a journey that we all go through, kind of like stop so that the fucking bus has to stop at, of like, okay, you experience undisciplinedness, you experience disciplinedness. And in that stage where you're like introducing yourself and developing this discipline, you have this idea and this thought that discipline is just continuously forcing yourself to do things that you hate in order to get yourself more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so like I quit smoking cigarettes and I start going for a run. And then when you start running, obviously you're like fucking nauseous and like you can't fucking breathe properly. It's just absolutely miserable. Your muscles and joints are sore. Your lungs hurt. Your chest hurts. Your head hurts. Like everything. It sucks. And then you just force yourself to do it. And then you're like, okay, I never read. I'm going to force myself to read. I hate doing ice baths. I'm going to force myself to do ice baths. I hate doing yoga. I'm going to force and you go through this cycle of like, you thinking that discipline is just forcing yourself to do things that you hate day in and day out, as long as possible, as much as possible. And that's somehow going to make you more comfortable with being uncomfortable, which it is. It truly is. But it's also just not really an enjoyable way to live life. And so you have to really think about this and honestly do some deep reflection of what you want your life to be, where you want to be in life. And then, once you kind of have decided this is the path I'm going to take, the very next step, in my eyes, is to figure out how to find a way to enjoy that process. Because in my eyes, discipline isn't this, miserable punishment. It's not this thought that, it's continuously forcing yourself to do things that you hate doing. That's kind of just like the first stage. But what I think truly it is finding a way. Discipline is the skill of finding a way to enjoy doing the things that you know you need to do, right? So it's not like this idea that it's a punishment. I know I have to exercise. We all know we have to exercise and work out. We all know that we're in this kind of meat suit that kind of the less resistance that it feels, the more gelatin-like, sloth-like, doughy kind of, unhealthy that it gets. Your joints start to give up, your muscles start to give up, your bones start to get less dense. All of these things, we need compression, we need resistance, right? We need to have something to push against in order to make us fortified, I guess, or formidable, I guess, is a better way to put it. And so, like, knowing, for example, taking exercise and things like that, that you need to do it. It's not just forcing yourself, okay, I hate running, so I'm going to run. Think about why you're running. Okay, well, I'm running because I need to get my heart rate up. I need to be able to, have healthy lungs, healthy heart, and to be able to do things that I don't always feel like doing. And you're like, well, how can I find a way to enjoy that? Maybe that's a sport. Maybe you're going to do it as a community. You're going to do it with your loved ones. You're going to do it with your friends. You're going to just join a new community. Maybe you join a martial arts gym. Maybe you join a fucking spin class. Maybe you do yoga classes or whatever. Think about why you're actually wanting to do this goal, and then find a way to truly enjoy it. Like, honestly, there's this idea as well that like you can find. And maybe you have to do this in the very beginning when you're building habits. Like maybe you find a way to reward yourself. People be like, oh, I went and got like a nice yummy smoothie after this class. Or, I treat myself to a Netflix show while after I do my exercise or whatever. And if you have to do that to get yourself to start new habits and doing things for yourself, like, okay, I'm going to give myself a little treat if I do this big struggle, whatever it is, then so be it. But I think truly, you will develop that kind of habit, routine, and discipline in your life when you find ways to actually enjoy what you're doing. When you get that, when the reward is in the actual act itself, when you start to build, and that takes time. It's not like you can just like do it the first time because you're not going to feel it that way. After years of doing a workout every single morning, you'll find ways to, find the little beautiful parts in it. After running in the rain outside in the cold becomes a habit, there's something actually like refreshing about the rain. When you've done it all year and you've done it in the 40-degree weather, you've done it in the 10-degree weather, you start to find the beauty in all of it. When it's super sunny, you're like, beautiful. I can go for a run with shirt off and, soak up some vitamin D, whatever, like you get that power, that natural energy. And then on days where it's cold and rainy, you're like, dude, I'm not overheating. I'm not sweating. I'm not like feeling my heart rate in my fucking frontal lobes here. Like it's actually refreshing to have like a little bit of cold water sprayed on me from, the Lord himself down from the skies. And so it's like finding ways to intrinsically enjoy it. Again, I go for runs. I do like a little spin bike in as a warm up for my weightlifting. And then while I lift weights, I watch shows that I like. I literally just put it on the TV. I throw on some shows that I want to watch or some podcasts I want to watch or listen to. And that's the way, like, for me, it's like, well, I can't sit still and just sit and enjoy a show or a podcast or whatever. I always have to be doing something anyways. And so I kind of combine the two things. Like, okay, I like to watch things, but I also I can't just like sit still. I'll fall asleep. And maybe that's a message in and of itself, but that's neither here nor there right now. I'm just trying to say, like, for me, I kind of combine the two things. I find a way to make them both work. And it's literally one of my favorite parts of my day. So it's like you take a thing that you feel like, okay, I know I need to exercise. I know I need to work out every day. I don't always enjoy lifting weights, but I can get myself to do it because I've kind of created that habit, that like I stacking the two habits together. It's like go for a jog, go for a little spin bike, whatever, to 15, 20 minutes of just like warming up my body in the morning, and then start lifting weights, because when I lift weights, I get to watch my favorite shows or listen to my favorite podcasts, and I just kind of combine the two things. And then again, it is also just kind of the idea of like the spatial cue as well, like going into the same area, putting on the same pair of shoes, sitting down in the same spot. Like it kind of does prime your brain to do the next task that you're asking yourself to do it. And, that even just gets me started on a new topic in and of itself, because, when you start to develop these habits, you start, you're like, okay, I'm going to start reading all these books for myself. I'm going to start reading Atomic Habits and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or whatever. Like, but literally, like all these books that are written about how to change your life, they all talk about the exact same thing. You want to start doing these habits. You want to start doing these behaviors. You want to start doing these things. And they'll tell you things that are very useful. One of the things that they'll talk to you about is like this like cue, behavior, reward thing. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. And that is a very like simple way to get yourself doing new things. And it's actually, it's one of the things that I kind of think about in terms of cue. I always think about physical spaces, not really like the habits or whatever. But again, you kind of have to... you kind of have to adapt these things to whatever works best for you, because if it's getting results, then I guess, that's not going to lie, right? So, but what I do think that this theory or this idea overlooks is this idea that we all have like some sort of a void in our schedules, in our lives, where we can just like endlessly, we think, oh, I don't do this thing, I should just add that to my schedule. We never really think of like, oh, why don't I do that thing? What do I do instead of that thing? If you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to start working out after work. Think about, why don't you work out after work? Well, because when I'm driving home, I go, oh, fuck, I'm kind of tired. I've been working really hard recently. I didn't eat well, I didn't sleep well, I didn't have this thing, I didn't do this thing. So I'm just going to kind of go home, chill out, put on some Netflix, maybe take a nap, relax, try and rest. And then tomorrow I'll have the energy to tackle that thing. We all think like, oh, I just have this like kind of like open window where I can just plug in the things I should be doing. Oh, I need to read more. I'll do that in the morning. Oh, I need to do a workout. I'll do that after work. Oh, I need to do my journaling. Oh, I'll do that right before bed. And then you think about, why don't we do those things? And it's because you're already using that time. You're already doing something with that time. And so I think one of the most effective things that we can do is to think about, what are some of the things right off the bat that I'm willing to give up? Because I want to add something, but I can't just add without taking away first. If you have your monthly bills, it's pretty hard to visualize yourself spending 20% more without actually like removing maybe 20, 30, or 40% of what you're already spending. If I asked you, yeah, you know what I mean? Like you don't just get to continuously add. I don't know how you possibly could think that you could do that. And so a better way first is like to think of it as some sort of exchange. I grew up watching, Full Metal Alchemist, and if you've seen that show, you understand the idea and the law of equivalent exchange. You can't just continuously add. You have to actually like start to think about, what am I willing to give up? And I think that, we have to think about why we don't already do these habits. What are we actually using our time, money, energy, and life doing right now that is inhibiting us from starting the habits that we actually truly want to have? So we have to think about, what are we doing when we first wake up? What are we doing when we first, when are we looking at our screens? When are we starting to look at our phones? Is that what's inhibiting us from starting to do the goals that we have? It's like, I wake up on time, but then I just kind of sit and chill and, look on my phone and scroll. Or same thing when we get home. It's like, I've always wanted to start this business. I've always wanted to start working out. I've always wanted to start doing this. I never really seem to have time. And we come home and we want to just chill. We want to just, and I do it too. And that's why I find myself every single season asking myself, what do I need to start doing? And before we ask ourselves what we can add, I think it's more important to ask ourselves what we can remove from our habits, from our behaviors, from our schedules, from our lives, from our friend groups. You think you can just continuously add friends, and then as you get older, like I'm 30 now, I've kind of seen this kind of happen throughout my life. And I'm not saying that that's like an old age or whatever, but it's like, you've kind of seen how everybody's circle slowly gets smaller as more things like more bills, your job, more responsibilities, more accountability, more things that you're responsible for. Your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is actually kind of a perfect example of what I'm talking about, is because like, you meet friends, you start, meeting new people, you start doing new things, you start advancing in your career, you meet new people, you start spending time differently, with these people. And you start to think like, oh, I have this new friend, I met this new friend. And it's like you can continuously just add new friends, of course. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't just add new friends. But, are you really going to have time to spend with everybody that you call a friend, everybody that you call family? And as that number increases, you're going to have to be more considerate about how much time you're spending or how much energy you're spending or how much thought you're giving to each of these people. You're going to have to, you have only a finite amount of time and energy, etc. And you can't really continue to divide it without actually like removing some of the things that you're spending those things on, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of it. That's kind of just all I really had on my mind today. It's something I was journaling about, something I've been reflecting on in this last little bit. And if I was to give you two different takeaways, two main ideas, two main topics from today, it would be learn to love that shit. Learn to find a way to do what you love as well as what you need to do. Because you can force yourself to do things that you need to do, and you'll probably end up miserable because you're not doing anything you love. And you can only do things that you love and never do the things you need to do, but you'll also end up miserable because of the obvious. And so if you can find a way to do both what you love and what you need to do in life, it's probably going to point you in the right direction. And as well, if you're wanting to add to your life, you want to add habits, you want to add behaviors, you want to add certain results, you're going to have to first take away. You're going to have to look at what needs to be cut away. And again, I talked about this a couple weeks ago with the idea of beautiful marble sculptures. Chipping away at all the marble. It's not that is ugly. It's not that it has to, that it's dangerous. It's just, it's not necessary. It has to be chipped away to see the beauty underneath. And that sculpture's already there. You just have to chip away at it and remove what's not necessary. And so on that note, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up. I will see you guys next Monday. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, you think that it brought you a new perspective, made you think differently, made you laugh, made you enjoy, anyways, share with a friend. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, leave a little comment. Let me know what you think. Rate it 5 stars. Leave a little review and share it. And that's pretty much it. See you guys next Monday. Much love. Peace out. Love you all. Bye.